Good evening and welcome to the February 12th, 2014 Eden Prairie Planning Commission meeting. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes for the agenda? Anything they want to see changed? Not seeing anything. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Okay, let's move to the approval of the minutes. Moving on, we have the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of January 8th, 2024. Any concerns, requests, edits on these minutes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion's been made. A second?
Second.
We have a second as well. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, we have one public hearing tonight. It is a request for a zoning amendment on 1.77 acres, preliminary plat on 1.77 acres, all at 7940 Eden Prairie Road. Will the proponent of the project please come forward? And if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman and Commission members, my name is Dan Blake, 16831 Cedar Crest Drive in the beautiful city of Eden Prairie. I'm the current.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm the current owner and operator of the Pemtom Land Company. I've been with Pemtom for about 10 years, took over from Dan Herbst. Pemtom has been doing business in Eden Prairie since the late 1970s. How do I get my slides up? There you go. Don't want you to read that, but, and prior to my time at Pemtom, I was with Centex Homes for 20 years doing a lot of development in Eden Prairie. So I kind of made this list today because it was fun for me. But there's at least, there's probably more than 3,000 lots accounted for there. And some names that you recognize and some names that, you probably don't, but you advance it.
No, I can.
There you go. Here's the general location of our property. It says 9740 on it. Pioneer Trails up to the north in Grace Church, the river and Flying Cloud Drive, that we call it, yep, to the south. In pinkish orange is all the Metropolitan Airport's property, the unused property, to a great extent. And I kind of highlight that because really everything's developed except what's right next to us and the MAC properties, which I don't know if anybody knows if and when some of those would be developed. I think there is some development potential, but I don't believe it's in their near-term plan. This is hard to see, but this is the site, a photo from 1989. You get off the county website, but we're highlighted there in blue. But across the street is the Cedar Hills Golf Course, which I understand opened in about 1940 and had golf going on until maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I also find it interesting that there was a ski hill there for a while too, sometime in the 60s or 70s, same location. And the reason I say that, any of that, is because the parcel we have before you today was once some kind of a auxiliary parking lot for the golf course. And that is why Pemtom came to own it, because Pemtom was the developer of Hennepin Village, which is Prospect Road across from the site and all the stuff to the south of that and across Spring Road. don't attempt to count how many units were in that neighborhood, but a lot, happened over about a 10-year period in the early 2000s. Our parcel, you saw the long list. I've been doing this for a long time. The smaller they are, the harder they are. But we'll get through this. We got a good plan now. We've probably had many dozen meetings with the adjacent neighbors and the city staff over the 20 years that we've owned this 1.7 acres, trying to figure out a good use for it. Staff repeatedly said, well, it would be better if you could combine it with something else. And we inclined to agree with that, but slowly things happened around it and the opportunities didn't pan out to combine it with something else. And so we're here before you with an idea that we think makes good sense. North and west of us is the Klein property, which that's who I've had the most discussions with, and they've been very consistent in that we like living here and we have no interest in selling our property. We have no interest in buying your property. And so we've, just nothing's happened over the years. Eden Prairie Road was upgraded in the 2014, 15-ish kind of time frame, from more of a country road to a real city road. And that brought sewer and water and assessments to our parcel. So this is the plan that we have before you on our 1.7 acres. It's a little bit inefficient, but I think it'll make two families happy because we have two fairly large lots. They're a little deeper than typical, a little wider than typical. As I said, unable to combine it with something else and figure out how a road could ever go through, this seemed like the best choice, really. It was one lot, two lots. The comp plan doesn't allow attached, so some kind of, we looked at a lot of things, little tiny, some twin homes or things like that. Didn't really make sense. And fitting a road in, because we have a hill on the side, used up too much land to do anything else with. So this is where we landed. Like I said, I think it's a good plan. We sent out we didn't have a neighborhood meeting as much as staff strongly suggested it, but I said nobody cares, but somebody does, and they'll tell you today. But we sent a flyer to all the people on the mailing list with a picture of the development, a little bit of an explanation, and I offered one-on-one or a phone meeting with anybody that wanted it, and we received very few comments in that regards. But the current condition of the property is, if you dug down a little bit with scratched with your shoe, you'd find it's mostly gravel because it was a gravel parking lot. There's some trees at the edges, mostly cedars that have grown up. I'm quite confident it was graded flat to make it a parking lot, and the 3-to-1 slope on the south side kind of supports that was probably graded to that point and then a flat spot left. So there's a few trees, nothing too significant, nothing that meets the city's definition of significant or of heritage. I guess some of these trees are significant, they show up on the survey. Because we're not going to work in the hill, we're not altering the trees much at all with our plan. On this drawing, if you can see at the very top and the very bottom, very faintly, we show the Klein house. And then at the very bottom, we show what I think it's the Robbins house next to us. So that gives you a proportion of how far apart we are from those adjacent houses without an actual dimension. And it kind of shows how our suggested house locations relate to those. We're somewhere not quite as far back as the Klein house, and not quite as close as the Robbins house to the south. There's our boxes are shown about 70 foot back from the right-of-way versus a 30 or 35 foot minimum. It could probably go 100 feet before we start getting skinnier in the back. So whatever the end consumer decides makes the most sense is probably where the actual house would end up. So we have two lots, 0.7 acres, 0.8 acres. They're both over 90 foot wide at the front setback line. They would each have their own driveway out to Eden Prairie Road, which is consistent with what's to the south of us, a few houses with driveways on Eden Prairie Road. Sewer and water services would have to get installed also out to Eden Prairie Road. We do not propose a grading project or a sewer and water project. We propose that happens with the homes. And ideally, we'll get one builder to build both homes and they can do all that kind of at one time. But the ground lays out nicely. The grading plan has the houses tentative elevation about 1.5 or 2 feet above the ground that's there, which is kind of a normal way you would set a house on there anyway. So our disturbed area is less than an acre. So we do not have on-site water treatment. We were assessed for stormwater management as part of Eden Prairie Road project. I'm confident that meets our Eden Prairie requirement. I know we still have a watershed district requirement to work through. The plan also provides for what we labeled as Outlot A, which is a provision for a future road extension of Prospect Road. This has been a kind of a sore spot for my opinion for a long time. I'm not really in favor of donating 16% of my property to the city, but I've conceded that's the only way we're going to get something approved tonight. And I don't know how that'll get used. I don't think even anybody really does it. I think staff is just trying to keep options open. And just because of where that connection lands, we end up giving up the bulk of it for a road that may or may not get built someday. Given that, I agree with the terms and conditions in the staff report, and be very available for any questions from staff or commission or however you want to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Commissioners, any initial questions, any clarifying questions? Commissioner Meddy.
I just can't help but kind of think about when it relates to the Lot A, has there been any, I don't know if, do you know, I'll ask this question first. Do you know if the kind of example locations of those houses are as close to the street as it can be, or could they theoretically be closer than that?
The zoning district would allow the houses to be closer to the street.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want them to be just because of the nature of the street. It's kind of, since these lots are extra deep, going further back seems like it offsets if there's a negative to having a driveway on Eden Prairie Road, being back further would mitigate that.
I'm just seeing now with that Outlot A and the idea that down the road there might be an extension of Prospect Road, that where if we were to go back to the survey, if we could bring that on the screen, if right about where it says block 1, theoretically, if you imagine a road coming through and then it would probably sweep up, you could maybe actually split this into 3. I don't know if that was ever looked at or evaluated, or how that would affect the density calculations of or fit within the R1 9.5 zoning, but I'm just curious if that's something that was considered or looked at.
It was considered. It was discussed a lot with staff. Actually, our first proposal had an outlet left on the west edge. There's a big hill there. I'm not sure that would get good use no matter what. I was reserving it as something that could get combined with the neighbors, kind of more for a density calculation than it could use. But there's a lot of hill there. And it's a little bit hard to, you can just kind of see the number of contours, but if you looked at this on a flat plan, you'd say, well, yeah, a road could go east and west and we should have lots back, fronting on that road. Well, they're all uphill, the least desirable lots. It would become a very expensive road to build on our own. And every time we looked at the math, we said, well, we're better off to do nothing with it than to spend whatever that is, 300 and some feet of road to get 3 kind of marginal lots. So that's where this plan kind of evolved from.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So where lot one is proposed, it looks like there's a shed close to where lot one would extend. I think that's north, south, is it east? Is that shed part of your property, or is that the existing residence property there?
Could you repeat the question, or I don't?
I'm looking at a aerial view,
Okay.
and it looks like there's a shed
Oh,
back towards,
Well, there's a great big barn on the Klein property to the west of us.
yes,
And it would be like straight behind our lot one, yes.
okay,
Which is, they'll share their story. That's why they want to live there, because they like their big barn. I assume it's full of fun things.
okay. So your property wouldn't go that far back to that,
No, that's why this has been unable to be combined with that property, because they use it.
okay,
And, the house sits straight north of us, the barn, shed, whatever they call it, sits to the west of us, and it gets used. And so they're not ready or interested in getting rid of either of those.
right, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Jeremy, would you like to give us the city's perspective?
sure, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. As the applicant noted, there are two actions requested tonight. One is a zone change. The property is currently zoned rural, and the applicant is requesting it to zone R1 9.5, which is single-family detached home zoning district. The minimum lot size for each of the lots is 9,500 square feet, and the front yard width is, I believe, 75 feet, except for on a corner lot where the minimum width is 90 feet. The proposed preliminary plat meets all of those requirements in terms of area, depth, and width. And the proposed density is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So staff is in the position to recommend approval of the preliminary plat and the zone change as proposed. A couple comments that came up during the initial kind of conversation. Outlot A is shown as a potential future road. We want to preserve primarily that intersection with Prospect to the east. And this Outlot A can provide either a connection to the northwest or to the southwest in terms of connection to either Cirrus to the north or Prospect to the south, or to the west, excuse me. Or it could be a cul-de-sac and provide access to the lot to the north. The applicant is proposing or providing that easement, or excuse me, that outlot as requested to preserve access in the future. We still have every option available to us in terms of connection to those streets that I mentioned, should we want to, and when and if that property develops. There was some question during the review process about extending Prospect from the west. Prospect now kind of terminates in a temporary type barrier on that residential street, and it's potential that that road be improved with the cul-de-sac when and if the vacant property wants to develop. We still have that option here. This proposal does not change any of those options available. A question came up earlier today about was there something considered about access off of Outlot A for this subject property? So there'd be 3 lots instead of 2. And that's true, as Mr. Blake had mentioned. Early drafts showed a Outlot A, or another outlot, off of Outlot A that would be developed when that road was improved. Ultimately, we recommended that be removed because, as Mr. Blake suggested, there's really not a buildable opportunity there without massive reconstruction of that hill and the vegetation in that area. I think this is one of those unique situations from a development perspective where the developer fits, or the proposal fits with the contours of the land, versus often a developer will just scrape it and make it flat and then build. And the applicant here is looking to the development or the builder community to kind of fit a house that fits in with that lot. So that's a unique thing that we haven't seen a lot of lately. So as I mentioned before, staff is recommending approval of the two requests, zone change and the preliminary plat as shown. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you. Not seeing any. This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak for or against this project, please come forward now. Good
Hi.
evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Chris Klein, 9700 Eden Prairie Road. I'm to the north and west of the proposal. I've got to finish my lifesaver, sorry. So originally, when Rod Rue and Mary Kraus were city engineers, and the assessment for Eden Prairie Road went through, Prospect Road was supposed to go west and connect with the dead end on the west side. That was assessed for 3 houses, the Pemptom Dan Blake's property originally, and the reason I'm here is if you approve this, then I am the one that's going to take the burden to bring Prospect through from Eden Prairie Road to the west to make that connection, if that's what you want. I just think that's a real gift to Dan and a burden for me. It makes my property value go down, I feel, because I was only going to pay for half of that road. And now with it being gifted to the city, there's, whatever. Is the city going to pay for any of that road at all? No, I don't feel that that's up to the developer to make that road happen. So my property value just is going to go down. A developer's not going to touch this. I figure that if Eden Prairie Road was almost $7 million to build, and that we all got assessed for in that area, we all got assessed. I don't know how far that is, but this Prospect Road cutting through is a quarter, a fifth. Is that like almost $2 million? A developer's not going to want to touch this. My only options, it really limits my options if you pass this. I feel for Dan, it's a tough area with the topography. It is for me too, because if I got assessed for 9 houses. And now, I got to do a holding pond and, all these requirements from the city to develop there. It just takes away a lot of my property to be forced to put a road through because I'm going to have to do that, or a developer is, to get approval for any type of houses back there, it sounds like. The original deal with Rod Rue and Mary Krauser, no driveways down to Eden Prairie Road between Prospect and going to the South Beverly Drive. So there was 1 or 2 existing houses that already had driveways. I guess that was okay, but no more new ones. When Rodeo Drive to the south was developed, I don't have any. One of those driveways that I just mentioned was supposed to go to the west, because they really were wanting to get the driveways off of Eden Prairie Road. And I don't know, somehow that got approved, and now there's more driveways on Eden Prairie Road, which is a really steep hill. In the winter, people get stuck, and now adding more driveways, people slowing down, turning into their driveways, people are gonna get stuck and have to back down. They didn't want the driveways. And now we're saying more driveways can come out there. So yeah, my cost to develop just went up. I just don't think it's fair. It's not fair that you put the burden on me. I realize you can't do 3 houses there and put a road in. I've talked to Dan, and that's a lot of money to put a retaining wall and have the houses face Prospect and have the driveways go to the Prospect Road there. Maybe you can get 2 there, but by Dan not building a road there, wow, he's just made a lot of money on that little piece there, because the burden of not putting a road. I had one more thing. Yeah, those are 2 huge lots. If he donates the whole road on his property to the city, he's got room there. The lots will be a little smaller, but probably still in code. Who pays for that? Is the city going to pay? Or I just don't feel like this is a good deal for me. How about the liability for that outlot? Can people just, because it's city property now, let's say, can people just come and go explore and walk back there and hang out like they can so there's a corridor that maybe could have, to the south, a utility corridor to the south of Dan's property that goes from Eden Prairie Road all the way to, help me out. Well, it goes past Prospect. Well, yeah, I guess it goes to Prospect there. So that could have been a road if the city really wants an east-west road. Yeah, you got Cirrus Way for an east-west road. That's airport property. Alto is also a potential, but that's airport property. I don't even know why you need an east-west road, but that's beside the point, I guess. If this is really going to be donated to the city, is the city going to help out? And why is that? Why has that become my burden that I need to put in a road all the way starting from Eden Prairie Road and connect that with Prospect? Or I met with Carter Schultz, and he said, well, that can go north. That can come from Eden Prairie Road and go north and hook into, or dead end while we're waiting for the airport, which will never happen, to go to that Cirrus Way to the north. And that could be the connection there. But again, I would have to, it'd be the developer's burden, not me if I sold. And maybe I don't want to sell to a developer, maybe because he's not going to want it. So there'll never be a road there because, some high worth individual will want that privacy and buy that land. Because that's the only way I see it's going to be sold. So now my options are limited. A developer who can make money on it, who would want it, is now gonna have to put, I don't know, a $2 million road, okay, $1.5 million. I don't know. I don't have any, how much foot road with sewer and water and curb and gutter. You know, that's not my expertise, but the original deal was to put Prospect Road to my property to the west, and then I would take it from the west and continue it. That's, I think, 350 feet of road that all of a sudden, whoa, I gotta, you know, that's my burden. So I've been going to these meetings for a long time, ever since the Musa line was moved from Pioneer Trail, when the airport wanted to do the expansion and the golf course got closed down. So I've been a big part of this and wondering and now it's finally down to, you know, I've made suggestions before, I've been up here, but now this is a big deal to me. This really affects me and my property. Oh, and when Carter was out, he was talking about a 9% grade somewhere. I don't know if that was going south or north, but that topography is super steep. And I don't know what the code is. You know, maybe you can go whatever, you know, whatever the percent, but it's hard. It's hard to do. So if I sold to a developer, how much dirt is he going to have to bring in to level this all out? He's not. I just see my options as really limited. I thought it was 6% grade, but I don't know. Just a lot of driveways out to Eden Prairie Road. I guess if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but I just don't see why I have to carry the burden of the whole road when the original assessment was for my 9 houses and, you know, only half of the road. You know, and again, is the city going to pay for any of that road now that the land's donated to them? You know, I haven't talked to you know, a planner, a drawer who can draw out how many houses I could get, but I fought for that, for the assessment for Eden Prairie Road. I don't think you could get 9 houses on my property at all. But now you gotta put the whole road, so I definitely feel very strongly that you aren't gonna get 9 houses on there that I've been assessed for. So,
I think we understand your, your position, Mr. Klein. Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else in the audience who would like to speak to this issue? Not seeing any other comments? Do we, I think I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to to close the public hearing.
A motion from Commissioner Meddy. Do I have a second?
Second?
We have a second. Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now, I think the issue here is Mr. Klein has made some comments regarding the impact on his property. City, could we ask the city, either engineering or planning, to perhaps comment on the city's perspective on this road and why we're going the direction we're going?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I can give my history on it, as Mr. Blake and Mr. Klein both alluded to, this has been, I think, a long process of all of these properties being put together. And I think it's been the city's stance for forever, ever since the very first one came in, probably, that said, you know, you always, like Dan mentioned, these small ones are hard to develop. And we've always encouraged the developer, the property owners to package them together, right? Because you end up with a better product. And this is the example of that. And now it's everyone's their own personal preference, whether they sell to a developer at any time. Some went earlier than others, but this specific site, I think it's obvious that the city put in Prospect Road on the east side, back when Eden Prairie Road and the Hennepin Village over there was developed. And then it was always a plan to go between point A and point B now, which is Prospect Road on the other side. Whether that plan works, you know, Mr. Klein mentioned a few grades, and I'll admit the grades between that point on Eden Prairie Road and the grades to get to the other side are challenging. If you look at a potential profile, just look at the contours through there, which you can see from Mr. Klein's presentation. You're going up some hills, but at the end, right? It's about a 960 elevation at Eden Prairie Road, and it's about a 990 or 890, I forget the number there, but it's a 30, 40 foot elevation drop between those, 600 feet. So, that 10% starts to come in there. So, which is where we tend to max out our roadway grades. When we ran Eden Prairie Road down to the bottom of the hill, that's why we swung it all the way over, because we couldn't get that grade to work there. So, I'll admit it's challenging to get at this point from A to B, which I think we considered when we looked at this plan that Dan brought up, because he came in and he said, I'm running out of options here. He wants to, do something with that small site. We've looked at, does it make sense for Prospect Road to go to the north? We all say it may never happen with MAC, but I think it will. That does alleviate, some issues with grade as far as getting the road from one point to another, and I believe that opens up some more potential for properties on that site. And we could certainly dead-end Prospect Road in a cul-de-sac at some point. So those are kind of some of our thoughts as we looked at this proposal, and how 2 lots coming out to Eden Prairie Road, which again, the precedent was there are driveways on Eden Prairie Road. As a practice, from a collector standpoint, we don't want to have a lot of driveways on collector roads because they carry more traffic, and you can imagine backing out, it's challenging. And they pointed to that as well. So, all those things considered, the city is accepting of this plan as it is, with the knowledge that donated outlot is there that will carry a roadway. It's specifically dimensioned such that you could build a 50-foot right-of-way through that corridor, and then the road would fit in the middle of that right-of-way to get to at least the end. And then which way it goes would really be up to the developer at that point of how they want to lay out that lot. So that's kind of the engineering kind of perspective. Can we make the road work? Yes, I think eventually we can. And this plan still fits with that as far as those 2 lots on this property.
Thank you. Jeremy, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Carter kind of summarized it well. I'd like to maybe just add that these meetings would be a lot quieter if every developer just went down the line and developed when they were next. When you have these infill type projects, it's somewhat challenging because there's constraints already placed on the property, in this case where Prospect is, existing grades, the vegetation. And so I think this approval, while it's a smaller lot and surrounded by a larger lot, I don't think we lose any options in terms of road connections, whether we go north, south, or terminate in cul-de-sac. We still have those options. The property owner to the north doesn't have to develop ever. If he wants to develop, or he or she wants to develop, they have those options also. This doesn't take away any of those opportunities. So that's why staff is comfortable from a recommendation of approval standpoint.
Thank you. Just a quick personal comment from my tenure. Prospect Road has had many interesting discussions in front of this planning commission. So, commissioners, comments, thoughts, perspective? Carol?
I always have some. You know, I think we're in between a rock and a hard place, right? If this owner wants to sell their property and replat without the you know, cooperation of the northern property, this is to me the only really, you know, real solution on how to put you know, some houses on this site. I don't think there's any other way around it. So, you know, without lot A, well, that property to the north would still need a street to come through. So I don't think lot A is doing anything but benefiting the northern property. And there's no way to get a own little personal road right through this property for 2 lots. That doesn't make any sense. So I agree with the city's assessment of the president on the road. You know, I think it's best to avoid the driveways, but there's no way to put houses on the site without a driveway onto Eden Prairie Road or the cooperation of the northern owner. So I'm in support of this plan.
Other comments? If that's all the comments, then is there a motion?
I move to recommend approval for a zoning amendment and preliminary plat, both on 1.77 acres, as represented in the February 12th, 2024 staff report, and based on plans dated January 5th, 2024.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Sounds to me like it passes unanimously. So good luck with the project, and I guess we move forward from here. That's the end of the public hearing, so planners report?
Not tonight.
Not tonight. Any member reports? Just an addition to my comment in the last meeting about parking requirements, I understand the state legislature is probably going to be considering some legislation regarding suspending the need for parking requirements. So it's looks like a topic of more discussion going on. With no other members' reports, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the planning commission meeting.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Meeting adjourned.